everybody, Carmen here, and for this week's How Do I, we are going to talk about how do I know when to change my foot for my project. This is actually a question that I get a lot. Customers will come in and say, I have all of these sewing machine feet, but I'm not really sure when I'm supposed to use them or how I am supposed to use them. So today we are going to cover many of the different feet that come standard with most sewing machines, and then we're also going to talk about some of the optional feet that are out there, because there really is a foot for almost every technique, project, all of that good stuff. Oftentimes I tell people, if you are struggling with a project, there is probably a foot that can help you out, because the sewing machine manufacturers have made so many different amazing feet that really make lots of different sewing techniques much easier. So first we're going to talk about the feet that come with most sewing machines. So I'm sitting in front of the Baby Lock Brilliant today, and I'm using the feet that come with that machine. So the feet that I'm talking about here are the standard feet that come with most Brothers and Baby Lock machines. What I find about the feet that come with your sewing machine is these feet are designed to work with all the stitches that are built into your machine. So most machines come with, let's say, 5 or 6 feet. Some machines come with less, and some machines come with quite a few more. And a lot of that really depends on how many different features and feet that your machine has. If you have more features and more techniques that your machine can do, you probably have more feet, so that way those things go together, right? More feet, more stitches equals probably more feet. But these feet that I'm going to talk about today, almost all machines come with, because these are things that most machines can do. So let's just start with the basics, which is the standard sewing foot. So this is what a standard sewing foot looks like. In the Brother Baby Lock line, it's called a J foot. Most feet are going to either have a number or a letter on them, which is helpful because then you can keep them sorted. And a lot of times our machines, like on the screens up here, they tell us when we go to a stitch what foot to use, which is also very helpful. So this is your standard sewing foot, and you can tell that it's a standard sewing foot because it just has a very traditional foot shape and size. Here it has a wide opening here in the bottom. It's not just a spot for a single needle like a straight stitch. It has room so you can have a zigzag, and that opening is going to line up with the opening on your standard needle plate. And the bottom of this foot is just basically totally flat. This one is nice because it has a little clear spot in the front, but some don't. Some are open or some are metal. So it just sort of depends. That part can look different, but this is just your standard sewing foot. So this second foot here next to it, this guy right here, this is a decorative stitch foot. And a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference? They really sort of look the same. This guy just looks a little bit fatter. Well, that is true. It's a little bit wider, and it has a wider opening here so you can see your decorative stitches as you're stitching them. But the big difference is on the back of this foot. So if you flip both of these feet over here, this guy is our standard foot, and you can see it's totally flat. Now our decorative stitch foot, hopefully you can see here, it has a ridge on the bottom. So it is actually recessed through the middle here. And the reason for that is when you are doing beautiful satin stitches, like maybe the ones here, right, and you're stitching them, the groove on the bottom of that foot is allowing for those stitches to stitch properly and not get caught on your foot. How many of you have had that happen, right? I definitely have, where I don't have the right foot on, and I just start sewing some fun stitch or doing something, and then my stitches get bunched up. And it won't really go forward, and like the actual stitches are getting caught under the foot. Using your decorative stitch foot, or in the Brother Baby Lock line, this is the N foot, is going to resolve that. So all of your decorative stitches, right, it just makes it work, particularly for these satin stitches, right, that get really thick. And the thicker they are, the denser the stitch, the more important it is to have that groove on the bottom. So those are your two standard sewing feet. Next up, let's talk about some of the specialty feet that come with the machine. So two of the other feet that people often ask me about, one of them is this guy here. It is the blind hem foot, and in the Brother Baby Lock world, this is the R. So if you can sort of see here, there, I'll put it over here in my little area so we can see. It has a little flange in the middle. I hope you can see that. I'm trying to turn it around. There we go. So this guy has a nice little flange here. And it has a little flange, this little flange goes all the way solid through it, because what's going to happen here is, let's say if these are my pants, we're just going to pretend, right, that this down here is the bottom of the hem of my pant, right? I want my pants to look like this, and I want to have that beautiful blind hem like I've already stitched here, where you can't really see the stitch, right? You can see the line where I folded it, but you can't actually see the stitch. So when you fold it to stitch it, you fold it like this, and as you're stitching here, and I think I'll show this on the machine, the needle's going to jump over and grab the fabric, but this foot really helps you keep it lined up. So I'm going to show you that over here, because I think that this is one of those that is helpful to see. So I'm going to go in here to my machine, and I'm going to select my stitch. I happen to know that I want my blind hem 31 stitch, so I'm going to select that, and it's going to come up here. And you can see on the screen that it's a stitch that goes straight, 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 bite, straight, 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 bite. And most machines are going to have a stitch like this that bites either to the right or to the left, depending on what you're trying to do. So here I have pre-folded my fabric, right? So it's just like this. And in fact, I can grab another piece of fabric here, so we can just show you. So I'm just going to fold this guy like this. So we're going to pretend like this is my hem of my pants, right? So this is ultimately my pant bottom would be down here. And I'm just going to flip this back. And what I want to have happen here is I want to just do straight stitch and then bite over. So I'm going to line that little flange. Let's see if you can see, get my arm out of the way. This little flange here is lined up with my roll here. Now on this particular stitch, I can adjust the bite, and I've already played with this fabric, so I know I want to adjust my bite over just a little bit to the right. And when you're doing a blind hem, you're always going to want to test your fabric and make sure that you have it lined up properly. And I would say almost everybody has to play with this, and every machine's also a little different with a blind hem, but this foot makes it so much easier. So then I'm just going to start sewing, and then it's just going to go straight, and then it's just biting over to just grab my edge, and I want to keep that flange lined up right to the little the edge here. So just like how on this guy, right, we kept it lined up to the edge, and then when you flip it over, it has just bit the side here. I don't know if you can see it, right? It goes straight, it bites the little inside here, and then now you have that hem. So hopefully that was helpful. This foot is one of those feet that oftentimes people don't use, and they look different. Like the Foppen biking version of the rolled hem foot actually looks very different than this one, but your owner's manual is going to tell you what each of the feet do and what they're called. And then, like I said, oftentimes the machine is going to tell you, like if we went back to my screenshot here, you can see that my machine is saying use your R foot, and my foot here says R. So it makes it very easy to know. So if you're ever not sure about using a different foot, a lot of times your machine is going to tell you which foot you want to use, or your owner's manual might tell you as well if your machine itself doesn't have a screen. Okay, next up, let's talk about stretchy stitches. So there are lots of stretchy stitches built into most sewing machines these days, which is great and fun because we wear a lot of knits. But one of the feet that comes with the machines is this foot G here. I'm going to show that first over here. This guy also has a flange on the side. Instead of having a flange through the middle, it is on the side here. And there's a bar. You can sort of see it on the bottom a little bit better maybe. There's a bar through the inside here. And this guy is great for doing overcasting or over edging and wrapping that thread right over the edge of your fabric. So I'm going to set the machine up to show you how this one works. And of course, with a lot of these feet, you could do these stitches with your regular sewing foot, but it's going to be harder to get the same result. So this guy here, I've lined my fabric up right up to the little flange here that's sticking out, right? I've lined it all the way up to there, and then I'm going to go pick a stitch. I think I used 24 before, so I'm going to go to that stitch. what's gonna happen here is I'm gonna go start here, and then the fabric, my needle is actually going on the right side of the actual metal part of the foot. So that way the stitch can wrap up and over around the edge of my fabric. And this only works well, really, because of the foot. The foot is making this possible for us to do like a mock serging stitch or to overcast over the edge of our fabric here, because that foot has that flange and the little metal bar that the needle is actually going up and over it as it goes over to the side. I'm going to cut my threads here. This foot, pro tip, when you are done sewing, you want to make sure you pull your fabric to the back. If you pull it towards you, it will get caught on that little metal piece where the thread has been going up and over the edge. So maybe you can see this here. Let me see if you can see it there. Or if I put it in the light, it might be easier. Or maybe I'll put it over here and you guys can see it there maybe a bit better. But you can see how it's just gone up and over the edge. And the thread is all the way on the edge and it's wrapped around the fabric. And that is because this foot, I'm going to show you again, because when this was sewing like this, right? Let me see if you can see it like that. When it was sewing like that, there's that little piece there, the little metal part, and so it was going over it and doing a lovely job making your nice overcast. So that on the Brother Baby Lock is the G foot, and like I said before, the machine often tells you which foot. Okay, next up, buttons. How many of you have struggled doing buttonholes or sewing buttons on? Well, most machines are going to come with a buttonhole foot and with a sewing the button on foot. So I'm going to pull these over here because we've talked about these guys. So right here, we have the buttonhole foot. Now, a buttonhole foot can look a little different. Sometimes it's not quite as fancy as this one, and it's just a square, like a rectangle, just remember this inner portion without the spot to put your button. The Brother Baby Lock machines and a lot of machines these days make it so easy because you just get to put your button right here. And guess why you put your button there? Because then it makes the buttonhole exactly that size for your button. Pretty slick. Like you can see here, I made a button earlier. And that button, you know, the button's going to fit perfectly in that buttonhole. So this is the buttonhole foot, and this will work for all different styles of buttonholes, depending on how many styles of buttonholes your machines have. A lot of machines have square ones, round ones, keyhole ones, all sorts of different varieties. And then this guy right here is the sewing the button on foot. So the way this guy works is there's a stitch on your machine that is designed for sewing your button on. Now I'm going to show you that one. But you can sort of see here how I put the button. This foot here actually moves. This part here moves open like this. And you are able to put the button here and hold your button like this. So that way you can sew it on because the stitch is going to go backward, forward, backwards, or side to side, and just do a locking stitch, and then you would move to the next. You would first do 2 of the holes, and then you move over to do 2 more of the holes. I sometimes also will tape my button to my fabric. I find that can be helpful, but the foot itself does, it actually holds the button there for you, and there is this little piece here that goes back and forth. So that way, and you can't see it at all, but if you want, that way you can have a little more movement in your button because there's a little plastic piece that's going. This is where my fingers feel so big compared to this little foot. It goes back and forth here, and you can sort of see it popping in right here into the button. So that way the button isn't so tight onto your fabric that you can't actually use it. Does that make sense? So if you're like me and you don't care for hand sewing, sewing your button on is super great. Let me show you what that stitch looks like on the machine. So let me just get to it here. It looks like on this machine, it's stitch number 70. So I'm just going to type in 70, and you can see there, it just looks like a little, it looks like a button. And that's also at the front of my machine, where I have all my stitches up above. It shows that as well. And it's showing me right there that you should use the M foot. And there's the M foot, and you would just snap that on and then go do half the button and then do the other part and it would attach it. But I do want to show you quickly how the buttonhole works. So we're going to grab this button off of the sewing on the button foot. And we're going to put my hands are in the way here, sorry. I'm going to put that button in here. And I'm going to go and select a buttonhole. Maybe this time I'll do a round buttonhole for the fun of it. Maybe I'll pick 59 here. So the button comes up on my screen and it says, please use the A foot, which is what I have. I've got the A foot. And then I am going to snap my foot on here and pull down my little lever. And then what is so slick is then I've pulled this, there's a little lever on the side here that I pulled down, and you can see my machine, when it's up, it says red light, you cannot make a buttonhole. When I pull it down, my machine goes green light, we are good. I can now sew a button. So then I'm just gonna hit start here, and it's gonna go back there and make the button the exact size it needs to be, or the buttonhole rather, for that button. And it's gonna go do one side, and then it'll go down and do the other side and do it perfectly the same on both sides, which is pretty amazing. And this is really where the foot is just awesome, because it makes it happen for you and it makes it happen perfectly. So I'm going to cut my threads here, raise up that little guy, and then you can see here 2 perfect buttonholes, both the right size for this. We'll pull off my foot again. Both the right size for our button. So pretty great. I'll pull it back maybe over here, easier to see. And you can see it's perfect for both of those. Super easy. So helpful to have all these feet that are working for us. Okay, next up, let's talk about, I forgot zipper. The zipper foot comes with almost all machines. And so like when you're trying to put a zipper in, right, you have those teeth that can get in your way. And what's cool about the zipper foot is the zipper foot attaches to your machine. So now we're talking about a technique, right? There's not a zipper stitch on your machine. This is going to be a technique, right? Inserting a zipper is a technique, and having the right foot is very helpful. So you snap your foot on here or on the other side. So because depending on which side of your zipper you are going down, you need to have room, right? This is sort of backwards. I always get backwards on the camera, but you need to have room, so that way there's room for the zipper to be not zipped together, if that makes sense. But the foot makes it super easy. And this is for a standard zipper, not an invisible zipper, but there's lots of accessory feet out there. And one of the accessory feet that I have to show you is the invisible zipper foot. So if you want to do invisible zippers, there is a foot for that as well. So this is a great example of how there is a foot for almost every technique that you can think of. Okay, so there are 2 more feet that come with the Brilliant, but this first set of feet that I talked about come almost with most of the machines on the market today. You're going to get feet like the ones I talked about. They might have a different letter depending on the brand, or they might be numbered, but in some way they're going to be labeled, so it's easier for you to understand, and it really makes it so much easier to use your stitches correctly and for them to come out how you want them to come out if you're using the right foot for the job. So now let's talk about techniques. And we're just going to talk a little bit. The Brilliant is pretty fun because it comes with a couple of extra feet for techniques, some quilting feet. So the Brilliant comes with a 1/4 inch foot. So this foot here looks really different than our standard. Let's put our standard foot right here, our standard J foot. This guy looks different, right? Than the standard sewing foot, right? So here, this is where you can really see that the opening, the hole in the foot is different. This patchwork foot just has a circle, so it can only handle a straight stitch. And the straight stitch in your center needle position, right? It cannot handle a zigzag. If you try to do a zigzag with this patchwork foot, what's gonna happen? Your needle will break. It'll be fine. You can throw a new needle in, but don't do a zigzag with this one. But with this guy over here, it's, you know, with your standard sewing foot, obviously there's a lot more room you can do a zigzag. But what's great about this patchwork foot is it also has one of these little flanges. You're probably noticing a theme here that we oftentimes need guideline help. And so for piecing, we can probably just set it up over here so you can see it, because I think it's easier to see on the machine. For piecing, you're sewing 2 pieces of fabric together, and you really want it to stay at a scant 1/4 inch. When we're doing garment construction or other types of sewing, you usually want a larger seam allowance, but for quilting, we want a scant or just a 1/4 of an inch. Everyone is different for how big they want that. But let me just show you here, if we go to our straight stitch here, okay, in the middle needle position, that flange lines up here, and I hit start, and it's just going to give me this perfect, I'm keeping my flange lined up with the edge of my fabric, and then I get a perfect scant 1/4 inch. So much easier because I have the right foot, and it makes it so much easier for keeping everything straight, and we know in quilting, keeping it all straight is really important. Okay, so the last foot that I have here to sort of show you is the walking foot. This guy is so great for when you've already pieced, right? And you have your top, and you have your batting, and you have your back, and you have all 3 of those layers of fabric all going together, and sometimes that bottom fabric can slip and slide, or the top fabric can slip and slide. What's great about the walking foot is your bottom feed dogs are holding the bottom fabric. Your walking foot is moving up here, and it's holding the top layers, and it's holding all of your layers of fabric together. This is also, some machines have other ways of doing that, but a walking foot is a great addition for a quilter. It's a great example of another foot that's going to help you with a technique. So there are lots and lots of feet out there. Hundreds might be an exaggeration, but there's definitely 30 or 40 different feet out there for your machine that do a wide variety of things, whether it be bias binding, right? Maybe you're going to do binding, right? Bias binding. Or maybe you're going to do applique, so you need an open toe foot, or you want to be able to see your decorative stitches better. Or maybe like this is a different style of 1/4 inch foot, or maybe you want to do piping. Really anything you can think of, there is probably a foot for it to help you. Some machines even have circular sewing feet. There's ruler work feet for using rulers for quilting. There's all sorts of different feet out there. So if there is a technique you are trying to learn, but it feels like the feet that came with your machine aren't quite cutting it, come into one of our stores or look on our website, because there's probably a foot that will help you out. So I hope that this was helpful and gives you a better idea of all of the feet that are in your machine, so you know which one to pick for which stitch or project, and then also the possibility of the feet that are out there that can help make your sewing, quilting, and embroidering a lot easier. So join us every Tuesday at 10 a.m. for a different How Do I series.